Hi everybody, my name is John, and today I will be reading This Moose Belongs to Me by Oliver Jeffers. Now first, do you know what a moose is? A moose is a very large animal. It has 4 legs, it is bigger than a car, and they typically feed on trees and bushes. They eat berries. They're what's called an herbivore. They eat herbs. Now, this story is about a very special moose. So, let's get right into it. The Moose Belongs to Me by Oliver Jeffers. Wilfred owned a moose. Can you guys see Wilfred? And now you can kind of see what a moose looks like. They're really big. Big animals. So Wilfred owned a moose. He hadn't always owned a moose. The moose came to him a while ago, and he knew, just knew, that it was meant to be his. And you can see that Wilfred is putting a little name tag on the moose. He thought he would call him Marcel. And that is what that says right there. Marcel, right on the name tag. He began following Marcel, explaining the rules of how to be a good pet. Much of the time, it seemed as though the moose wasn't listening. But Wilfred knew he was. Mostly because he followed Rule 4 very well. Not making too much noise while Wilfred plays his record collection. So we can see down here a bunch of fun records, and Wilfred, he's just sitting there listening to music. So these little records you can put into this machine and it makes the songs come out. So Wilfred's listening to his tunes and Marcel is not making too much noise. Sometimes the moose wasn't a very good pet. He generally ignored Rule 7, going whichever way Wilfred wants to go. You can see Marcel eating an apple. Like I said, they eat plants, herbs. And Wilfred pushing Marcel, and Marcel just not going anywhere. Remember, moose are thousands of pounds. You and me, even the strongest person you know, they're not moving a moose. The moose had a very good sense of direction, and Wilfred did not. And because the moose was particularly poor on Rule 7, subsection B, maintaining a certain proximity to home, or closeness, or staying close to where Wilfred lives, you have to stay close by, Wilfred quickly learned to bring some string along on their outings so he could find his way back again. So over here, we have Marcel going off into the forest, exploring as moose like to do. And what do we have down here? It's Wilfred with a string, so he doesn't lose Marcel. Sometimes the moose was an excellent pet. He had no trouble with Rule 11, providing shelter from the rain. Here we can see Wilfred smiling, happy, Marcel being a structure. Because remember, you and I could stand under a moose. They're huge. Or Rule 16, knocking down things that are out of Wilfred's reach. So what is Marcel doing here? He's reaching up for some apples and knocking them off, and Wilfred is saying, here, good work. Wow, look at all their adventures together. Here we see him surfing in a big wave. Here we see him in a barrel going over a waterfall. One day, as Wilfred discussed their plans for the coming year on a particularly long walk, he made a terrible discovery. I wonder what it is. Someone else thought she owned the moose, Marcel. Rodrigo, you're back! Wilfred was dumbstruck. This moose was Marcel, not Rodrigo. The old lady was mistaken, and Wilfred thought it only proper that he correct her. This moose belongs to me, he explained. And to prove it, he called it Marcel. Heel, he said. But the moose did not respond. He seemed more interested in the old lady, as she says, "Good Rodrigo." Fine. Embarrassed and enraged, Wilfred rushed off for home. But in his haste, and miles from anywhere, he tripped over his string and got tangled up. We can see him tripping over the string he laid out for Marcel. And there he lay. Wilfred was beginning to get a little bit worried. It was getting late, and the monsters would be out soon. He had just ruled out the last of his options, and we can see a bear with an axe, a penguin, a saw, a hammer. Anyone know what that one is? Lightning. A dolphin saying no problem. When along came the moose and performed Rule 73 brilliantly, rescuing your owner from perilous situations. And we can see Marcel eating a nice little apple after saving our hero. All was forgiven, and perhaps, Wilfred admitted, he'd never really owned the moose anyway. With that in mind, he and the moose reached a compromise. The moose would agree to all of Wilfred's rules whenever it suited him. Dominic, you're back and you brought me an apple. So, what did you guys think of This Moose Belongs to Me? Fun story, right? Something like a moose can't really be owned by anybody. They do what they want. And sometimes we're lucky enough to be part of that experience with them. I hope you enjoyed this book. I'll be back with more stories later. Have a great rest of your day or your evening, and please be well.